Tonight, we're going to take a break from the weather for at least a few minutes, and we're going to talk about law and order. When all the ice melts, we're still going to have issues with the criminal justice system here. Multnomah County District Attorney Mike Schmidt is running for re-election now. His opponent is a veteran prosecutor from Schmidt's own office. We talked with that challenger, Nathan Vasquez, in late November. He accused the DA of wrecking the relationship with Portland police, cutting way back on the number of cases being prosecuted, and basically being way out of his league because he only briefly worked as a district attorney years ago. Now it's time to sit down with Mike Schmidt, and that's our big story tonight. Now, whether you live in Multnomah County or not, I think you are going to find this downright fascinating. Mike Schmidt is the top law enforcement person in Oregon's most populated county, so his approach to crime makes a big difference. It's a big deal. He was elected by a landslide just before the murder of George Floyd. Since then, critics have accused him of being soft on crime, something he says is not accurate. I began our discussion by asking how 3 years into his term now, he thinks the county is doing when it comes to people feeling safe.
Well, clearly, we're hearing from people that they don't feel safe. And so I think that that's a real challenge for us. I think a lot of people have a lot of love for this city, a lot of faith and a lot of hope, and they see things that they see signs of improvement. But we certainly haven't gotten to the place where people are feeling safe. We have a lot of work to do.
Do you feel any of that's your responsibility or your fault, I guess, more sharply?
Well, I think my responsibility, certainly, as we talk about, and I try to get the word out, and I appreciate being interviewed here with you because it's about getting the word out. What's the work that we're doing? I talk to every single grand jury that comes through the courthouse. And at the end of it, these are 7 community members who sit and they hear cases for a month. And almost to a person, they say, I had no idea all this was going on. You guys are doing all kinds of cases. Police officers are doing fantastic work. We never hear about this. So I think where my responsibility lies in terms of people feeling safe is to be communicative and try to get the word out that work is going on, collaboration's happening, and we're getting results.
So the city, the county is safe, but people just don't realize it because of the messaging?
Well, I think there's certainly messaging in terms of letting people know the good work that's happening and letting people know things are happening. But we have real challenges, especially over the pandemic. We saw gun violence really increase, homicides in the city spiked. It's great that in 2023 we're seeing all categories of crime across Portland receding, homicides down a significant amount, 20-25%, something like that. Auto theft similarly down that same amount, so we're making progress. But there are real challenges that we're facing. We continue to not have defense attorneys being appointed to cases, which makes our ability as prosecutors to hold people accountable challenging. So it's both. It's letting people know the good work that's happening and the progress being made, and there are real challenges that we face.
Now, I wondered if one of those challenges is his relationship with Portland police. His office rejected 90% of the 2020 protest-related cases that were brought by police. And then prosecutors filed an assault charge against an officer for something that happened during a protest. The officer and the victim eventually came to a compromise that involved the officer publicly apologizing. How's your relationship with Portland police?
I think the relationship is good. Certainly, we started off on a challenging note, coming in the protest like I did. Didn't have kind of the runway that would have been great to have in a high stress, high tense situation like that. But since then, one of my favorite meetings every single month is meeting with the chief in his office at 7 a.m. on the 13th floor, the 15th floor of the Central Precinct. And we get together, there's no agenda. The U.S. Attorney's Office is there, his staff is there, I bring my first assistant, and we just sit around and we talk through our issues. We talk about the challenges facing our community. We spitball on ways that we can work together and collaborate, and we've been doing that for 3 years, and that's how you get partnerships like our auto theft task force and our retail theft task force and the street racing mission that I went on New Year's Eve. So it's all about, communication and collaboration, and I think that despite starting off on kind of a rocky foot, we're making inroads. And when you look at our prosecution rates, which are higher than they've been the last 7 or 8 years, you don't do that by yourself. That's not a one-sided, oh, look at me. That's a partnership. That's collaboration. That means that police officers and prosecutors are working together, gathering the evidence we need, and we're able to make the cases.
All right, so far we've heard Schmidt say that people do not feel safe in Multnomah County, but that crime is going down. And part of the problem is just messaging, that people just don't know that things are getting better. He also feels his relationship with Portland police is good. But what about prosecuting crimes? His challenger, Mr. Vasquez, said the DA's office under Schmidt is only prosecuting about 6,000 cases a year, about half the number that was compared to before Schmidt took over. Schmidt says that is not accurate.
Yeah, well, we can get those numbers, but what I've seen in terms of felony cases being referred to our office, we saw a slight dip during the pandemic, during 2020, 21, 22, slight, but not massive. And our prosecution rates of those also similarly had a slight dip during COVID and now are higher than they've been since well before my predecessor was in office. Misdemeanors is where we've seen the big decline in terms of cases being referred to our office. There are reasons for that. In fact, we looked into the different issues in terms of that. One of the big ones was ballot measure 110 decriminalized about 2,000 to 2,500 cases that would be coming to our office on an annual basis. So that's just work that doesn't exist anymore. Those aren't misdemeanors anymore. So of course they're not coming to our office. What we're seeing is a rebound in misdemeanor referrals to our office and a higher prosecution rate. So last year we prosecuted in 2023 around 4,700 misdemeanors, almost 5,000 misdemeanor cases, and about 5,000 felony cases. So that's about 10,000 cases, give or take some of the math there.
Well, I followed up with Mr. Schmidt's office, and they reported that in 2023, the office actually issued 8,384 total cases. Issued means the cases are officially filed and then moving on in the system. So less than Schmidt estimated there, but also more than Vasquez estimated when we talked with him. The office reports that the total number of cases brought to them by police was 12,772, and that 72% of those cases were issued, and that's a 7-year high. The office noted that 1,051 cases are still pending and another 3,337 were dismissed because they did not have enough evidence. I had told Mr. Schmidt that the interview would be a two-part focus, really, partly on how he thinks the job is going so far, which we've kind of covered, and partly on his qualification to run for re-election. This next part now gets into the political re-election side. His challenger says that Schmidt simply lacks experience and that it's hurting the community. Okay, and then just getting sort of more onto the campaign side, how many major felony cases have you tried?
Have I tried? Well, I think, I was in the office. I started as a deputy district attorney in 2007. I started as an intern. I prosecuted in the office till 2013. The majority of my time was spent in Unit A, which is our property crimes unit. So that's where a lot of my trial experience came from, was in property crimes. I also left the office. I worked in the legislature. I worked and ran a state agency for 6 years where I got to travel internationally and look at other systems and see how they do things different. So I have both. I have a perspective of being a frontline attorney trying cases, and I also have what it takes to run an agency, which is a different level of experience most people don't have.
Which leads to the second question. Your opponent, career veteran prosecutor, has handled the biggest cases. Don't you think it makes a difference on whether the person leading the office has that sort of experience?
Well, I think there are a lot of different types of experience that really matter. That's his case to be made about why he wants to argue that he's better. But I'll tell you, the district attorney before me and the district attorney before him weren't trying cases. We hire attorneys. We run a 250, 260 person law firm. Only about third of the staff are attorneys. We have to deal with everything from HR, budget, IT, administrative staff, and really the job of the district attorney is outward facing. It's building relationships, it's building coalitions. Since I've been the district attorney, the office has grown. Our budget has increased almost 20%. When I took over as the district attorney, we had 75 attorneys. Today we have 88. That reverses an over a decade's worth of trend of our office being cut and having our resources dwindle. So how am I able to do that? Because I'm outward facing. I have relationships. If you look at the folks supporting me on the campaign side, my endorsers, I got, most of the elected officials in our community are supporting me. And that's not just to say, oh, look, they're supporting me. That's how you get things done. That's how a leader leads an office, because I need those folks when I want grant funding from Salem, when I want the county commission to increase our attorney capacity. We had an outside audit of our office that says we need 110 prosecuting attorneys to handle the workload that we're given in Multnomah County. So we're up to 88. That's great news. We still have a long way to go. But you need somebody who has that outward-facing experience, that administrative experience. I think that's absolutely crucial, and the relationships to get it done.
Which then led to the question about the billboards, which you may have seen around Portland. They're paid for by backers of the group People for Portland, who try to use public pressure to get elected officials to take action in areas where the group feels they are lacking. One of the most visible talks about the county being a Schmidt show. The billboards downtown.
Yeah.
A very personal attack on you and your leadership role and the way that you're running your office. What's your response to that?
Well, since day one of taking this office, I had to deal with Donald Trump calling me out in a speech on a runway saying, the district attorney from Portland, Mike Schmidt, so I've been dealing with these kind of right-wing attacks, this disinformation and misinformation. You look at the billboards and it says all about the crime, everything else like that. Well, crime's going down across the board. So it's scare tactics. It's also quite honestly, I think Portlanders in general, I think are just, this is the home of Portlandia, the four-way stop, the infinite four-way stop where everyone's waving the other person go. We're nice people, we're kind people. These are kind of petty. They don't have solutions. So imagine spending all that money and not proposing any solutions, just doing character attacks and stuff as juvenile as using somebody's last name. I think it's kind of beneath. I think a lot of people, turns a lot of people off. I think when I'm talking to folks out on the campaign trail, what I'm hearing from people is that we're here because we care about this community. We love this community. I think we're getting over the people who want to trash this community and divide us. I think other people have said this, don't bet against Portland. This is a hopeful place, and people want solutions, and they want people who are going to be positive and digging in and not just trying to cut people down and using their name.
Which then brought us to Measure 110, which decriminalized drugs. Both Schmidt and his challenger Vasquez agree it does need to be changed.
We need some changes, no doubt about it. First and foremost, I think that the legislature needs to do something about people using drugs on our streets.
And by do something, you mean make it illegal?
Make it illegal. Right now it's a violation, so it's a TIFIC, right? A ticket. My proposal, and we put together a memo for the legislature that we have shared with our legislative folks here in Multnomah County and the chairs, Jason Krupp out of Bend and Kate Lieber, the Senate majority leader. And so we've shared that memo with them. It says that we should criminalize open use on our streets. But we shouldn't do it in a piecemeal city by city way. The legislature really needs to take that action. Because if you do it city by city, it becomes kind of a patchwork quilt of different approaches. You want the legislature to do that statewide. I think that we want to tighten up laws against drug dealers. There have been some adverse case law out of the Court of Appeals in terms of our ability to prosecute people for dealing drugs. And so nothing to do with ballot measure 110, but that's an area where I think we can tighten up our law. And so we've proposed that.
And that has to do with, do you actually see them dealing and how much do they have in their pockets and that kind of thing?
Precisely. We used to call that Boyd delivery, which is the name of the case law that it was based on. The Court of Appeals said that no longer counts, that you need to actually see somebody doing the delivery. So our proposal is to create the new crime of possession with the intent to deliver. So we no longer have to have the fiction of the dealing thing happen. Treatment. We absolutely need to see lots more treatment come online. Also, we propose that we'd like to see follow-up when somebody overdoses, that there ought to be a team of individuals that follow up with them. Other communities have done this. They have put together these teams of professionals, not necessarily police officers, but health professionals that get the person's information when they resuscitate them, and then they can follow up with them within 24 hours. That's kind of one of those golden moments, people have called it, where you hit that moment in your life where you might be ready for a change, an inflection point. And other communities have had great success at getting people connected to treatment with that resource.
It was an interesting conversation, and thanks to Mike Schmidt for taking the time to sit down with me. Now, I know that was a lot, but we do want to hear your thoughts on this. Did anything the DA say change the way that you think about how he's done over the past few years? Why or why not? Anything surprise you? You know the drill. Email us. The address is thestory@kgw.com or call and leave a voicemail. Our phone number is 503-226-5090.